For the next few days after that rainy night, things between Emma and me felt fragile. Every time I passed her door, my chest tightened with the memory of her words. Pretending didn't feel like pretending to me. I wanted to knock, to ask her what she truly meant, but the fear of hearing an answer I wasn't ready for held me back. So I did what cowards do, I avoided her. But fate has a cruel way of cornering you. One Saturday afternoon, I went to the local cafe to catch up on some freelance work. The place was buzzing with chatter, the smell of espresso thick in the air. And then I saw her, Emma, sitting by the window, her laptop open, her face lit by sunlight. She looked up and caught me staring. "Hey," she said, motioning to the empty chair across from her. I hesitated for a moment, then sat down. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure the entire cafe could hear it. For a while, we talked about small things, her classes, my projects, but underneath, tension simmered like a pot about to boil over. Finally, she closed her laptop and looked at me straight on. "Daniel, we need to talk about this." My throat went dry. "About what?" "You know what." Her voice was steady, but her eyes trembled. "That night, what I said." I swallowed hard. "Emma, if I'm being honest, I haven't stopped thinking about it either." The words felt like jumping off a cliff. No safety net, no way back. Her eyes widened just slightly, then softened. "So, it wasn't just me?" I shook my head. "It wasn't just you. The reunion, the dancing, the way you defended me, it all felt real. Too real." Emma bit her lip, a nervous habit I'd seen before. "Daniel, I don't want to ruin our friendship, but pretending to be your girlfriend showed me something I wasn't ready to admit. I like you. More than I should." The air between us shifted. My heart was hammering, my palms sweaty, but I knew this was the moment I'd been afraid of. The line between fake and real had already blurred, now it was gone. I reached across the table, my fingers brushing hers. "Emma, I like you too. Maybe I've liked you for a long time without realizing it. That night just forced me to see it." Her hand tightened around mine. And for the first time, we weren't acting. This was raw, terrifying, and honest. But before we could let the moment sink in, reality barged in through the cafe door. It was Jason, the same classmate from the reunion. He spotted us immediately and smirked as he walked over. Well, if it isn't the Lovebirds." His tone dripped with sarcasm. "Still keeping up the act?" Emma's face flushed, and I felt anger boiling in my chest. Before I could respond, Jason leaned in and whispered just loud enough for us to hear, "Come on. Everyone knows she was just playing pretend." "Who are you kidding, Daniel?" My fists clenched under the table. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about proving something to Jason, or anyone else. This was about proving something to Emma, and to myself. I looked Jason dead in the eye, then turned back to Emma. My voice steady. "Pretend? No, not anymore." Her eyes widened, her breath catching. Jason chuckled, shaking his head, but I barely noticed, because all I could see was Emma, sitting across from me, waiting to hear the words I'd been too afraid to say for weeks. And in that crowded cafe, with my heart in my throat, I knew I was about to risk everything. Jason's laugh echoed in the cafe like nails on a chalkboard. But for the first time in years, I didn't care what he thought. My focus was entirely on Emma, her wide eyes, her trembling breath, her fingers still brushing against mine on the table. I squeezed her hand tighter. "Jason's wrong. This isn't an act anymore. At least, not for me." Her lips parted slightly, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Around us, the clinking of cups and low chatter faded, as though the entire cafe had melted away, leaving only the two of us. Jason muttered something under his breath and walked off. But I barely noticed. My chest was burning with words I'd been holding back for weeks. "Emma," I said, voice low but steady. "I know this started as a lie, as something stupid to save face at my reunion. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being pretend. When you stood up for me, when you laughed at our fake jokes, when you whispered it felt real, I realized I didn't want it to end. I don't want to go back to being neighbors who nod in the hallway. I want us." Silence. Her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite read, fear, hope, maybe both. She bit her lip, and for a moment I thought she was going to pull her hand away. But then she whispered, barely audible, "You don't know how long I've wanted to hear you say that." My heart slammed against my ribs. "Then why didn't you?" "Because I was scared," she interrupted, her voice trembling. "Scared that you only saw me as a stand-in, a convenient solution. Scared that if I admitted how I felt, you'd laugh, or worse, you'd pity me." I shook my head fiercely. "Emma, how could I ever pity you? You're the reason I started believing that maybe love isn't just for other people. You made something fake feel more real than anything I've ever had." Her eyes welled with tears. But a small, shaky smile spread across her lips. She leaned forward, and suddenly, her forehead was resting against mine. "Daniel," she whispered, "if we do this, there's no pretending anymore. No going back." I swallowed hard. The weight of her words pressed down on me. This wasn't just about confessing feelings, it was about risking everything. Our friendship, our comfort, the fragile balance we had built. But looking into her eyes, I knew the answer before I even spoke it. "I don't want to go back." Her breath hitched, and for a moment, it felt like time itself paused. I thought she was going to kiss me right there in the middle of the cafe. And maybe I would have let her. But then, her phone buzzed, loud, persistent. She pulled back, glancing at the screen, and I saw her expression falter. "Who is it?" I asked carefully. She hesitated. "It's my ex." The word hit me like a punch. Emma's eyes darted between me and her phone, guilt flickering across her face. "I didn't want to bring this up, but he's been texting me for weeks. Ever since he heard about the reunion. He says he wants to talk. He says he wants me back." My stomach dropped. Everything inside me screamed to say, "Forget him. Choose me." But instead, I sat there frozen, heart in my throat, watching her wrestle with a choice that could shatter everything we'd just admitted. Do you think Emma is going to choose her past, or her future with me? Drop your guess in the comments right now. And make sure you're subscribed. Because what happens next will shock you. Emma stared at her phone, the screen lighting up again with his name. Her ex. She silenced the call, but I could still see the conflict written all over her face. "Emma," I said carefully, my voice low, "do you still have feelings for him?" Her eyes snapped to mine. Pained. "No. At least, I don't think so. But when someone was such a big part of your life, they don't just disappear, you know?" He broke my heart. Daniel. And now he wants to show up like nothing happened. I clenched my jaw, trying to hold back the storm rising inside me. Every cell in my body wanted to shout, "You don't need him. You have me." But instead, I forced myself to listen. She sighed, rubbing her temples. "He texted me after the reunion photos went up online. Said I looked happy. Said maybe he made a mistake letting me go." Her laugh was bitter. Funny how people always realize too late. Silence stretched between us. I reached for her hand again, but she pulled back gently, her eyes full of guilt. "Daniel, I need to see him. Just once. To close this door for good." My stomach dropped. "See him? Why? Isn't it already closed?" She shook her head. "Not unless I face him. If I don't, he'll always linger. And if we're going to be real, you and me, I can't start that with old shadows still haunting me." Her words made sense, but they cut deep. Part of me respected her honesty. Another part screamed in fear that seeing him might reignite something. The following week, Emma met him at a cafe downtown. She told me beforehand, promised it was only for closure. I sat in my car outside the building, unable to stop myself from driving there, unable to sit at home while she was with him. Through the window, I saw him first, tall, confident, with that easy arrogance that made me instantly dislike him. Then Emma walked in, nervous but composed. They talked. At first, it looked civil. Then he leaned closer, reaching for her hand across the table. My chest tightened like a vice. Emma pulled her hand back, shaking her head. His expression shifted, first frustration, then desperation. He said something that made her eyes fill with tears. She stood up abruptly, grabbed her bag, and walked out. I jumped out of my car and met her on the sidewalk. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling, "you were right. He hasn't changed. He just wants me because he lost me." Her tears spilled, and without thinking, I pulled her into my arms. She clung to me, shaking. I told him no. I told him I'd moved on. Relief washed over me, so strong it nearly knocked me to my knees. But before I could say anything, she looked up, her eyes raw and searching. "Daniel, moving on only matters if you want me to. Do you?" The question hit like thunder. The choice was suddenly mine to make. Out loud, in front of the woman who just shut the door on her past. And my next words would define everything. Her question hit me like lightning. "Daniel, moving on only matters if you want me to. Do you?" For weeks, I had been trapped between fear and desire. Between holding on to safety and reaching for something terrifyingly real. But now, looking at her, eyes red from tears, trembling from the weight of what she'd just done, I knew there was no more room for hesitation. "Yes," I whispered, then louder, firmer. "Yes, Emma, I want you. I don't care that this started as a lie. I don't care that people might laugh at how we got here. What matters is that I'm done pretending. You're not just my neighbor. Not just my fake girlfriend. You're the person I want to build my life with. Emma's breath caught, her hand flying to her mouth as if to hold back a sob. Daniel, I stepped closer, cupping her face gently. I watched you face your past and shut that door. You were braver than I've ever been. And I can't stand here and let fear stop me anymore. Her tears spilled freely now. But her smile broke through like sunlight after a storm. She whispered, "Then kiss me, Daniel, and let's stop calling this pretend." So I did. Right there on the crowded sidewalk. With the city rushing by. I kissed Emma for the first time. And it wasn't dramatic fireworks or some movie-perfect moment, it was messy. And desperate. And real. Real in a way that left no room for doubt. When we finally pulled apart, we were both laughing through our tears. She pressed her forehead to mine and said softly, "You know, that reunion might have been the best mistake we ever made." I chuckled, holding her close. Not a mistake, just the strangest beginning to something real. From that day forward, everything changed. No more rehearsed lines, no more acting, just us, learning, stumbling, loving, and it wasn't perfect. We argued about dishes, about work stress, about silly things, but beneath all of it was the knowledge that we had chosen this. Not out of convenience, not out of pretense, but out of truth. Sometimes love doesn't arrive in the way you expect. Sometimes it sneaks in through a lie, a joke, a favor that spirals into something you can't ignore. But when it's real, you know. And I knew, without a doubt, that Emma was no longer my pretend. She was my forever. Sometimes love doesn't begin with fireworks, candlelit dinners, or perfect timing. Sometimes it begins with a mistake, a lie, or even a silly act of pretending. What matters is not how it started, but how real it becomes when two people decide to drop the masks and choose each other with honesty. Daniel and Emma's story reminds us that love is not about appearances or convenience, it's about courage. Courage to face the past, courage to risk the present, and courage to step into a future together. So if you take anything from this story, let it be this: the most unexpected beginnings can lead to the most genuine love. If you're brave enough to let it.